Card King, here I come. Hello, sports fans, sports collectors, and all hobbyists. Welcome to the Card King Sports and Variety Show. I am your host, the Catman Brian Cataquet, a.k.a. the Card King. We are live on ABC's KMET 1490 AM.com, your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast. I thank everyone for tuning in this morning. On the program, actually, not on the telephone line, but we welcome into the program 1985 World Series baseball champion. He played for the Texas Rangers, Chicago White Sox, Kansas City Royals. I welcome in Greg Pryor. Greg, honor to have you. Thanks for being on.
Hey, Brian, good to hear your voice again, and happy that I can talk to some of your great baseball fans around the country. And let's get right after it because we don't want them tuning us out.
Absolutely. So I understand you have a book out. It's called The Day the Yankees Made Me Shave. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I was drafted by the Washington Senators in 1971, and I had no plans to ever play in the big leagues. It wasn't really a dream of mine because I wasn't that good. And here I get 10 years in the big leagues. I play on a World Series team, and then my daughters said, "Dad, you need to write a book about all those stories." So I wrote 27 stories about my career, including the Pine Tar game, including disco demolition. And my book is The Day the Yankees Made Me Shave, and it's available at baseball.town if somebody wants an autographed copy. And, some of the chapters in it, some of those maybe East Coast Yankee fans might like it because one of my chapters, in fact, Chapter 4 is called The Day George Steinbrenner Called Me a Dumbass. So, they can read all about it in my book.
So, yeah, what's interesting, like I mentioned at the start of the show, you play for the Rangers, White Sox, and Royals, but yet you also play for the Yankees farm team, right? How did that all work out?
Well, yeah, I was dead set, ready to go to the Rangers Major League camp in 76. Or 77, and then I get a call from Gabe Paul and the general manager of the Rangers. Gabe Paul was with the Yankees, and they said, "Pryor, you've been traded to New York." So I have to go from down to Fort Lauderdale to a major league camp with the Yankees. And as most people, good baseball fans know, the Yankees went on to win the World Series in 77 and 78. I was in the 77 camp with Thurman and Catfish, Reggie, and all of them. And Billy Martin was manager, and he fired me. He sent me to AAA. They said you have to go to Syracuse, and I said I don't want to go to Syracuse. I was heading into my third year in AAA, which at age 28 is like a death sentence, And I get to Syracuse, and I had a mustache revolt. I decided to get traded and cause trouble, so I started growing a mustache against the rules. Steinbrenner had a rule for all minor leaguers; they couldn't grow mustaches, and I said, "Well, we'll see about that." So I got all the guys on my Syracuse team to vote to grow mustaches, and we ended up winning the mustache revolt. But I still had to stay in Syracuse the whole season. I played it out. I went free agency the next November, and I signed with Bill Beck and Roland Heeman in Chicago with the White Sox. I played there 4 years, and then I got traded to Kansas City in '82. And I played here where I live in Kansas City for 5 seasons.
Man, so like you said, you played a decade professional baseball. So take us back to 71. This was an instrumental year, obviously, in your career. The year you were drafted by the Senators, 6th round. Do you recall, now, were you shocked that the Senators drafted you? What were you doing that day?
Well, at the time I got drafted, I was in Miami working out with the Pan American team that was coached by Bobby Winkles, Arizona State, famous Arizona State coach, and he went on to coach in the big leagues. And I was trying to make that Pan American team. Fred Lynn was down there, and then I got somebody come up to me that day and said, "Pryor, you got drafted by the Senators yesterday." And I said, "What?" So this scout called me in there in Miami. He goes, "Pryor, we'll give you $10,000." And I was broke because I just got out of college. I was broke, and I think $10,000 in 6th round. That's pretty good, isn't it? Back in '77, that was darn good, or '71, that was darn good. And so I went to Winkles and I said, hey, I have a chance to sign with the Senators or try to make your team. What do you suggest I do? He goes, Pryor, if you have a chance to go play pro ball, you go ahead and do it. So I signed, got the money. I went to the New York Penn League, and it's all on the back of my rookie card, which is in Yankee Stadium. I had my rookie card, my first rookie card, my 78 card, was taken in Yankee Stadium, and all my minor league stats are on the back. But right at the top of it was my Geneva stats in 71. That's where I started.
Yeah, I mean, I love your baseball cards. You know, I followed you. I was a teenager in high school. I followed your career in the mid-'80s there. So now we got to remember, prior to your draft, I mean, you were a two-time All-American infielder at Florida Southern, right?
Well, I was, but out of high school, I wasn't drafted out of high school in '67 out of Orlando, and I had no scholarship offers either. And my older brother, Jeff, was a great college pitcher at Florida Southern. He was a year ahead of me. And my dad went to the head coach there, Hal Schmeltzley, and said, either you give Greg a scholarship to your school or I'm taking Jeff out of here. So I went to college on a bribe because my dad bribed the coach. The coach gave me a small scholarship, and I didn't know that until after I graduated that I went to college on a bribe. And I went down there. I hit under 200 my first 2 seasons, and all of a sudden I just decided to get better, you know. You just wake up one day maybe and just decide to go. So I started getting better, and then I became an All-American there 2 years, and I signed. And but it was no shoe-in that was going to be in the big leagues because there's a big difference between minor league baseball and Major League Baseball, and I found it out, and I got my shot in '76 with the Rangers, and I was with Jim Sundberg and Gaylord Perry there with the Texas Rangers in June of '76 for about 3 weeks. I was in the big leagues, and then I got sent back to AAA, and then I had to wait until '78 to get in the big leagues for good, and then I played '78 through '86.
And, you know, Greg, many people listening, they may not remember or realize the Senators in 71, the Washington Senators, they became the Texas Rangers in 72, right?
Yeah. Right. You know, they just moved the franchise from D.C. down to Arlington, and I became a Texas Ranger because they owned my contract, and that was kind of fun, being with the first Texas Ranger first Texas Ranger team in '72. That's when the franchise started, and I got to meet Billy Martin. He managed it. I was in 2 spring trainings with Billy with Texas in Pompano Beach in '74 and '75, and then I got traded to the Yankees in '77.
So now your first crack in the minor leagues, did you find it very competitive? How was the pitching? Was it difficult to hit? Did you have to adjust a lot?
Yeah, great question. In '71, I was sent to Geneva in the New York Penn League, and my first month there, I didn't do well at third base one game. It was a first game of a doubleheader, and between games of the doubleheader, and my manager, I won't mention his name, he came up to me. He goes, right in front of the whole team, he goes, he read the lineup out for the second game, and he looked at me and he goes, Pryor, you can take your uniform off, and I don't care where you go. And I was like stunned. He told me to quit. My first professional manager told me to quit, and I was thinking, well, I'm not going to make the big leagues anyway, so I might as well just go ahead and quit. But I put some mail pouch in. I went out and sat on the bench, and by the end of the season, he was begging me to stay. So you just got to change people's attitudes. You can only do it on the field. There was a lot of guys on that '71 rookie team that were better than me. I looked around; they were faster than me. They could hit better than me, but nothing stopped me from getting better. And I just kept working at it, man. I kept working. Over the winters, I would work hard on my game, and all of a sudden, I got a shot, and I got a chance to play in Chicago, and ended up playing 143 games in '79 for the White Sox, and that kind of validated me as a big league player by playing in that many games. So I became a known player around the league.
Yeah, and Greg, reading a little bit about your biography, I know Bob Wellman, the manager, was very instrumental for you, right? Bob Wellman?
Yeah. Well, let me put a little backstory on that. I got told in '73. the farm director of the Rangers come up to me and he goes, Pryor, he says, we don't have any space for you in our minor league system. He says, we're going to farm you out to a Phillies minor league team in Rocky Mount. It's the 73 season. And I said, what do you mean? I said, well, you're going to be wearing a Phillies uniform in Rocky Mount. You're going to be playing for Bob Wellman, your manager, but you're going to be property of the Rangers. And I'm thinking, well, at least that's a job, you know? So here I go, bopping in to meet all these brand new players for the Phillies. I didn't know any of them. And I ended up playing there, and I made 50 errors in A-ball in 73, and Bob Wellman, he was one of the most patient guys. He kind of helped me through, and anyway, I hit 293. The Rangers told me that they didn't know what they're going to do with me. So they said, Pryor, you can hit a little bit, but you can't field, you can't run, you got no power. So I was behind the 8 ball there. But Bob Wellman was probably the most influential manager that at that time to help me, because you know, when you make 50 errors, you don't look in the dugout because you don't want to see the manager shaking his head.
Yeah, and, you know, besides Bob Lemon, I mean, you also played, you know, for Larry Doby, didn't you?
Well, I played for Bob Lemon in 78. I thought you said Bob Wellman. I played for Bob Lemon my rookie year. In 78, I was 29 years old. I was a rookie. And Bob Lemon was managing the White Sox. And he was another guy that was so patient. He, you know, it's so cool to be around some of these, you know, Bob Lemon, Hall of Famer. As a young player who's in the big leagues, it was so nice to be around these mature, patient men, because major league managers, they really have to show a lot of patience, because there's a lot of ways that they could get angry, you know, as some managers have, like, you know, Earl Weaver, Billy Martin, whatever. But there's a lot of guys that are really patient managers, and Bob Lemon was one. Larry Doby, he took over for Lemon. And then Lemon went on to win the 78 World Series with the Yankees. That was so funny. He left the White Sox and went to manage the Yankees, and they won the World Series in 78. So I played for Larry Doby and there in Chicago, and then Don Kessinger became a player manager. I took over for Doby. So Kessinger's playing shortstop as a manager, and I'm playing second base, and it was really kind of cool playing with the player manager right next to me.
We're talking with Greg Pryor, who played Major League Baseball for 10 years, played for the Rangers, White Sox, Royals. He's with us on the telephone line. Greg, here's some fun facts that, you know, behind your baseball card that I found out. If you could touch upon some of these. Now, your brother pitched for the Angels organization in 68 to 72, right? So you come from a family of ball players.
Yeah, he was a great, probably the best high school pitcher in the state of Florida in 1966. And then he went to Florida Southern on a 4-year scholarship. He was 8-0 as a freshman. And he kind of was I looked up to him. You know, he could really, he was a great pitcher. And he signed with the Angels, and he got to AAA. And I had signed, you know, obviously with the Rangers. And he and I were playing professional baseball at the same time. And he got hurt. He didn't want to continue his career, and I just kept on going. But he was a big inspiration. Without my brother Jeff leading the way for me at Florida Southern, I would have got there to play, and never would have been talking to you right now. So I give a lot of credit to my brother and my dad, who bribed me to get me to play at Florida Southern.
Now, your dad was an athlete as well, no? Wasn't your dad an athlete?
My dad was like all state in West Virginia, football, basketball. He played at Wake Forest with Sam Huff and Bill George and guys like that, old time. He played for P. Head Walker. My dad played with a leather helmet and no face mask. I put his picture in my book. Yeah, my dad was a pretty rough guy. He taught me everything I know about sports, but he knew more about football than anything else. And it's so funny that he told me he was so proud of me that I made the big leagues. And after I got to the big leagues, he started telling me how to hit. That was so funny. I get to the big leagues, and my dad finally started giving me batting tips, you know.
Yeah, but he was proud of you, right? He was proud of you.
No, he was, and he was so proud, and he was a great athlete. He was a high school football coach for like 40 years and a great math teacher. And as I said, my dad was at the top of the list for the guys that helped me get to the big leagues.
And here's another fun fact on Greg Pryor. Now, I'm reading the back of your baseball cards. First major league home run came in '78 off the Mariners. Do you remember that? Well,
Yeah, it was a Don Kessinger night. The White Sox were going to honor Don Kessinger, a great Chicago Cubs shortstop for many years, and the White Sox were going to have a night for him. And Larry Doby came up to me before the game, and he goes, "Pryor, I'm hitting you second tonight. I'm gonna let Kessinger take some heat off of him." And I said, and I was like, I never hit in the top five most of the time in my career. I was always a 6 to 9 hitter, but I hit second that night, and it was like 33,000 people there. It was an exciting night, and I hit a home run in the first inning, in the bottom of the first to tie the game up, and then I come up in the third inning, and I hit another home run. So I drove in all three runs for us, and we won 3-2. And I have those baseballs in my collection. My first two major league home runs, both one to left center and the other one down the line and left. I had those in my collection, and the equipment manager sent two bats out and got the balls back from the people that got them in the stand. So I'm really happy to have those balls in my collection. You'd think I would have hit more than 15 in my career there, or whatever I hit. I don't even know how many home runs I hit in my career, but my first two were in my rookie year, and they were back-to-back.
wow. Now, '79, Greg Pryor has an 11-game hitting streak for the White Sox. Now, '79, you were seeing the ball very well, Greg.
Well, 79 was weird because I don't know, a lot of people might remember Harry Chappis. He was a young kid that was the White Sox were trying to play at shortstop. He was on the front of Sports Illustrated, in fact, and I had to wait for him to either make it or not, because I was on the bench the first 2-3 weeks, and he got the job out of spring training because he was really fast, and they thought that he was going to be the shortstop of the future for the White Sox. But after I got in the lineup, they couldn't get me out. I went like 24 for 60, and I hit 400 my first 60 at bats in '79, and they couldn't get me out of the lineup, and that's when I really got confidence that I could be a major league hitter, was in '79.
Yeah, and then July 6, 1980, two-run pinch hit home run in the ninth inning. You beat the A's that game. Do you remember that?
Yeah, La Russa, was the manager of the White Sox at the time, and I hadn't played in 5 days, and we lost. We won the first game, and then the second game we're losing, and then with 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth, we're down by 1 run, and Todd Cruz got on infield hit, and La Russa walks down the dugout, and he looks at me, he goes, "Pryor, you're the hitter." And, I was like shocked because there was no warning. In fact, in his book that he wrote the foreword for my book, La Russa, and he kind of apologized in his foreword for not warning me. But I hit a ball over Ricky Henderson's head into the stands in left field in Comiskey against the Oakland A's, and we won the game 5-4. And it was Billy Martin was managing Oakland, and it was kind of like karma, payback. But I didn't rub it in. Billy was who he was, and I was able to show Billy that I could play. And I don't know. I heard he got pretty upset after the game because I hit that home run. But that was one of my bigger thrills with the White Sox.
All right, so I have a few minutes left, and I want to ask you, 1985, I mean, what a year. I mean, many athletes, you know this, Greg, they don't even get a chance to play on the big stage. Here you are, you're a World Series champion. What was it like? How was your adrenaline going into the World Series in 1985?
Well, I got traded there in '82, and there was a ton of the team in '82 that were all-stars. And, Amos Otis, Willie Wilson, Frank White, George Brett, Dan Quisenberry. So I was traded to a team that had some bona fide all-stars. And when you get around all-stars, or guys that know how to play the game, it brings your game up. And John Sherholtz, along the way, '83, '84, he started collecting some really, really good pitchers like Brett Saberhagen, Mark Gubicza, Danny Jackson, Buddy Black. And then he got Sherholtz got Jim Sundberg right before the '85 season. And Jim Sundberg was a big cog in our '85 team, 6-time Gold Glover. And then another big acquisition was getting Lonnie Smith, who became a leadoff hitter. So I think that general managers have a better chance of getting a team to the World Series than the players because picking who's going to play and giving a good manager some good players to choose from was what John Schuerholz did, and he's proven it when he went to Atlanta and he did the same thing there. He's probably one of the best. He's in the Hall of Fame, John Schuerholz, and he endorsed the back of my book, so I'm really proud to tell you and all the fans there that he's one of the best general managers ever in the big leagues.
Man, and how is it playing alongside a great like George Brett? I mean, Hall of Famer, one of the most prolific hitters of all time.
Well, I got traded to the Royals in '82 in spring training of '82. I had never met George, and I didn't really want to meet George because when I was with the White Sox, I didn't like the Kansas City Royals players at all. I didn't talk to any of them. And I get traded to the Royals, and the next morning, George Brett walks up to me. He goes, "Hey, Pryor." He goes, "Let me ask you a question." He goes, "Whenever I was on second or third base in Comiskey or Royal Stadium, how come you never come over and said hi to me?" I said, "Because I didn't like you, George. That's why." That was some silence, That was the truth. I wasn't going to lie to him. That's why I didn't talk to him because I just don't think that players ought to fraternize. I just don't like it because you're there to beat them. You're not there to be friends with them. And he goes, "You like me now?" I said, "George, I love you now." So for 5 years, I locker next to George. My number was 4. His number was 5. I locker next to him in the Pine Tar game. I played in the Pine Tar game. And I played third base when he didn't, which was not an easy job. But he's one of the best players that I ever played with, and I'm so glad to call him my friend.
Yeah, well, you got to remember, I mean, not taking anything away from George Brett. He's one of the greatest hitters of all time. But, you were coming up right alongside. I mean, you were an infielder as well. So he had to watch his back as well a little bit, I'm assuming.
Well, let's get serious now. Come on. George Brett, we needed his bat in the lineup. Yeah, we didn't need mine. My baseball cards, the stats don't lie. George could really drive in some meaningful runs, and he could do things that nobody else could do at the time because he just was a great clutch hitter, and he almost hit 400 one year. So now we needed George in the lineup, just like we needed Frank White and other guys like that. But guys like me, I could play well enough to keep a job for 16 years in baseball. That's all I wanted to do was just keep my job, play another year, and all of a sudden I get around these great players, and I got a World Series ring on right here.
That's something that can never be taken away. So that, no doubt about that. So again, for the listening audience, which I'm told, Greg, we have about 89,000 people streaming during these hours. So for the listening audience, where can they, again, purchase your book? They can also get an autographed copy, right? Give us that information again.
Yeah, go to baseball.town. That's my site. Just punch in www.baseball.town, and they can order the book, and I'll autograph it and send it to them. And then I would like to mention my other company, if you don't mind. I have a health and nutrition company that my wife and I have run for 30 years. That's at lifepriority.com. Life, L-I-F-E, priority.com. Please go look at my Life Priority company, and I've been helping people feel better and think better because I'll be 75 in October, and I need to think more clearly these days, So thank you for letting me share my book site, baseball.town, and my company, lifepriority.com.
Yeah, and if you don't mind me asking, how was it working with Tony La Russa? How did you get him involved in the forward of this book?
Oh, God. Great question there, Brian.
I have a couple of minutes left.
I played in his first win as a major league manager in Toronto. I was the shortstop, and Tony La Russa, I can say I was in his first big league win. Well, I was with him for over 300 more games after that, and even though he and I had differences at times, he went on to become successful, not only in Oakland but also in St. Louis, and he's in the Hall of Fame. He's won more games than almost all managers. I think he's in third place. But I just decided to contact him because I knew he was a literary guy. And I said, I texted him. I had his cell number. I texted him and said, "Tony, I would like you to to write the forward to my book, and he agreed to do it. So I sent the manuscript to Boston. He was with the Red Sox at the time as a employee, and he wanted the whole manuscript. He didn't want to read it online. He likes to turn pages when he reads. So I sent him the manuscript, and he called me up. He goes, "Pryor, you cut me down in your book a little bit." I said, "Look, Tony," I said, "you write that forward like a Hall of Fame manager that you are, and I don't care. You answer me in the forward." So the forward is one of the best parts of the book, and I'm so proud to say that Tony wrote it. And even though some of it is not complimentary toward me, that's what I expected out of Tony, because he was a real gamer manager.
I mean, Greg, that's a big deal for Tony La Russa to forward your book. I mean, that says a lot. I mean, he has to have respect for you. So, that's a big deal for me.
Yeah. He was very instrumental in my success. They traded me to the Royals in '82, and after my season with Kansas City, he wrote me a nice note and mailed it to me. I got nothing but good things to say about Tony La Russa. And a lot of people look at major league managers; they're not perfect. They make mistakes, and but Tony, he stood the test of time, man. He's in the Hall of Fame, and for him to write the forward to my book, I'm just so proud of it, because I'm not in the Hall of Fame, and I never will be. But I played it long enough to have an impact on the game, and I wrote 27 stories about my career. I wrote about the World Series in my book, and hopefully people can grab a copy for their family or their friends, because old time baseball was a great thing. I came through right at 76 when free agency happened. I was able to become a free agent, and because in 76 or 77, and that's why I'm talking to you today. So it's a great story. In fact, I got a couple of guys that want to do a documentary on my career, and I'll let you know about that when it comes to fruition.
Please, listen, great job. I appreciate it. I'm going to pick up a copy. The book is called The Day the Yankees Made Me Shave. Greg Pryor. Greg, thanks so much. We'll speak to you soon.
Okay, Brian, thank you. And thank you all fans for listening.
Take care of yourself. Until next week, happy collecting to all.